Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Spirit Rescue Talk. I am Amy Major, and of course, you know my co-hosts, Cynthia Maroon and Jordan Stark. We are back again with another wonderful show, and as you can tell, we have an amazing guest with us again, Heather Rann, who actually I know very, very well. She started off as one of my students years ago and has just moved into an amazing friend and coworker. And she was very nice enough to come on the show and talk about her spooky things going on in the world that she lives in. So, of course, today we're going to be talking a lot about haunted locations because Heather Rann is actually a rescue medium and close to my heart. And I love everyone else who does rescue mediumship as well. But she really does specialize quite a bit in haunted locations because, as we've been discussing in the show, Spirit Rescue can take you in many different modalities and many different directions. Heather has chosen the route of going into these spooky places and deciding she wants to smack some ghosts around or close some portals and help people feel a little bit safer in their locations, which is really important, especially as we're moving into spooky season, as we've been saying, into closer to Halloween and the Day of the Dead. So you're going to start seeing a lot of paranormal activity. You're going to feel a little bit more ghostly activity. You're going to feel the sensations of things going on around you. You might want to start watching a little bit more spooky shows or haunted movies. And a lot of people actually go to haunted houses, hopefully fake ones, not real ones, without somebody guiding them through them. There's a lot of ghost tours out there. You name it. It's spooky season in full-blown activity. And so, of course, one of the best guests that I wanted to bring on during the spooky season is Heather Rann, because she is such a strong specialist in this field. And we did want to be able to bring her on to discuss, the situation she's gone through, but just to discuss haunted locations in general, to give you an idea of, are you living or around a haunted location? Because it's good to have an idea if your home is haunted, or if it's just things that go bump in the night that have nothing to do with spiritual activity. And a lot of people are starting to look for that validation or information to give them reassurance about their haunted location. And better to do that but Heather. So we're going to just say a little hello to Heather and let her introduce herself to you. Hi, Heather. How you doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
We are ready to go to talk about this spooky stuff. And of course, I always say, oh, Jordan, she loves talking the dark stuff. Well, the only competition she has out there about the spooky stuff is you. You have come really close to saying, ooh, the darker, the better. And that's one thing I really love about you, is that you're not afraid of anything. You're really, really tough. You're really brave, and you really like going into challenging situations. But before we do talk a little bit about some stories or some scenarios you've gone through, can you just give everybody a little bit of a quick background on you so people have an idea who you are?
Well, I've been spiritual my whole life. There was a lot of things intuitively I would do as a child, but I didn't really understand it at the time. I lived in a lot of haunted houses growing up, like really old houses. And I used to tell my friend what I thought were stories about the ghosts that lived there. It was probably real, honestly, looking back now.
Yeah.
I guess I kind of got my start. My family, they ran out of gas across from a cemetery one night, and they left to go get gas, and the sun's going down and my eyes are getting bigger, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going to come out of the cemetery? And I was
Are
like,
you
9
alone
years.
in the cemetery? Your parents left you?
The car stopped on the side of the road, and my sister and I stayed in the car, and then our parent went to get gas.
They
And so
left
we're
you
across from
alone.
the cemetery, and it's getting dark and we're alone, and I'm like, my eyes are like huge, and I'm 9 years old, and I'm like, what's going to come out of the cemetery? Like, I was just so scared. Anyways, so that's kind of where it started, where my whole love for, because then nothing happened, right? So then my child brain was like, well, was that stuff real? Is it not real? So I started to read and get my hands on everything I could, watch everything I could, and it really developed a lifelong love of all things scary and dead and, you know, that kind of thing. So that's kind of where it started. But like I had all these things happen living in the haunted houses. The house that we live in now, when we bought it, was active like day 2 of being here, and we started renos, and it was super, super active. And it was active for probably 15 years before I figured out that it had more to do with me. So, and that they were always trying to get my attention. They were always trying to like communicate with me. It took me 15 years to figure out that and how to clear it and try to live here peacefully. But in the meantime, I had joined. So that was probably 2015, but in 2009, I decided to join paranormal. Actually, I founded a paranormal team. So in the meantime, I decided it'd be a good idea with all the activity going on here. I'm being sarcastic, by the way, to get into a paranormal group and start investigating other people's houses and businesses and stuff like that. And so the more I did that, the more I realized that I'm clairsentient. I'm very clairsentient. And that we would go places and I would feel chest pain, or I'd feel shortness of breath. And I never really thought much about it. We just did the investigation, gathered our evidence, and left, right? And then there was one business we went to, and at the end of the night, another investigator and myself, we were waiting for the other people to finish off. So we went into a room, and when I walked into the room, I got nauseated. And I'm like, that's strange. I wasn't sick. Wasn't feeling sick tonight. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to try a little experiment. So I walked out of the room and it went away. And I walked back into the room and it came back. And then I went, okay. And I said to my friend, I said, grab the voice recorder. And the spirit box. We're going to do something. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, no, I just want to try something. So anyways, so the things that started coming to me in my mind, I started asking these things out loud. And I was getting an older female. That's what I felt like. And I thought maybe she died of cancer and she lived in the area. So I started asking the things out loud, though, to try to verify. And on the spirit box, it would come back with a female voice, and it was answering all my questions, and all the answers I was getting were the answers she was giving. So that's the moment where I kind of went, okay, there's really something to this. Like, I've really got something going on, and now I need to figure it out. So that's when I started taking all these classes, and I started like signing up for workshops, and like I would drive an hour once a week to the city because there was spiritualist churches there, and go and sit in circle and learn stuff and talk to other people. And so I really kind of absorbed everything I could absorb and learned a little bit about everything. That's a piece of advice I got one time, was to learn a little bit about everything, about spirituality and about how it all works, because then you kind of know what to gravitate towards, like whether you like tarot cards or whether you want to go into numerology, or you know what I mean? So I took a lot of different things like Reiki, shamanism. I went on a couple retreats to Ontario. I did a lot of stuff, and really tried to figure it out and start to learn what's going on. And once I figured it out, I cleared my house and set up some boundaries here, because I was constantly having, at nighttime, I would have spirits come to me because they wanted to cross over, and they knew I could help them. And it got to be a lot. And then I would have not so nice spirits coming into the house and bugging myself, bugging my daughter, like physically, like poking her and talking to her. And so I learned to set up boundaries. So I have boundaries around the property. Anyways, and that's kind of just where it kind of, once I figured everything out and I learned, and I mean, you're constantly learning, right? Like I'm constantly learning new things. You never stop learning. But once I figured out what I could do, then I decided I really wanted to do that for other people, because I was terrified here for 15 years, right? Because I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about anything paranormal or spiritual, or, you know. So, who do you go to? You know, who do you go to help you when something like that happens? You don't just, you know, open the yellow pages or Google, you know, someone in your neighborhood, right? So,
Ghostbusters, you know.
What's that?
I said other than Ghostbusters, because, you know.
Well, yeah. So I decided I wanted to start helping people, especially because the paranormal group that I was in, the leader didn't really believe in mediums, and he didn't really want to help people. Like, we would just go gather evidence and leave. And I really felt bad for some of these homeowners who were desperate.
Yeah.
So I started my own group, and started doing houses myself, and taking some of the members with me by times and stuff like that, to try to help people, because I know how terrible it is to try to sleep at night, to worry about your kids if they're okay, just to have some peace, because that's where you should have peace in this world, right? You should be able to come home, and that should be your safe place, right? So yeah, I think it's really important, and that's what I love. That's the one thing, that's the service that I love doing the most, because I feel like it's the most valuable. I mean, maybe I'm a little biased, but I don't know.
Sorry, guys, we got spirits jumping into our technology.
Shocker.
They were messing with my hair, and then they started flashing my screen. And Heather, you're bringing spirits in to the show.
Well, I have a lady that actually lives here. So she used to live in this house. So I just kind of said, you know what, you can stay. So I don't know if possibly that's her kind of being curious, or.
Well, they started touching me, and I was like, get off, get
away.
Like, I'm busy, I'm working here.
I'm busy.
For the newbies that are like watching the show and they're thinking, I don't know what's going on in my place. I think there's something going on, when you go, and you specifically, when you go to someone's home and you're there for the purpose of house clearing, what kind of things do you look for yourself? What kind of education are you providing for the family? How are you dealing with their concerns, their anxieties? What's your specific approach to it? Because you're obviously very passionate about it, and you have a lot of honor in doing it, and you think it's, like you said, of value. So how do you approach it? What's important to you when you're doing these house clearings?
Well, obviously I get their background story, and I mean, a lot of people, they will say, this is going to sound crazy. And I'm like, no, like, I've heard everything. I've experienced so much, and no, it's not going to sound crazy. Like, tell me everything, right? Like, tell me exactly what's going on. And just figuring out what's really important to them, to be able to, to have a peaceful existence. Like, are they being wakened in the night, or are they being touched? Are they seeing things? Is it affecting anyone else in the house? Like, are they, what's their state of mind emotionally? Just kind of having a chat with them, and reassuring them that it's not as crazy as they might think it is. It's actually kind of normal. I mean, just about every place has something in it. I mean, I don't want to say every place, but some kind of like, I don't want to say everybody that, everything's haunted. I just mean like, there's history in every house. There's history in every location, right? So you can have imprints and things that happened in the past that aren't, necessarily a haunting. But I like to reassure them, I guess, is that, like, this is fixable. It's you don't have to live in this forever, and we can do something about it, and try to bring them some calm and some peace, a peace of mind.
Right.
That's important. And follow-up's a big one for me. If anybody has any questions following, if they have anything that crops up for them, anything new that happens, they can always message me. However, we've been talking, whether it's email or messenger or that kind of thing. And I can always do follow-up from distance. I mean, I can clear it from distance, but I really like to be in the location personally. Right. Then I can go into every closet. I can, walk the space. I go in the backyard. Like, I would rather do it that way. So I do a lot of traveling. I I've gone, I've probably gone about 2.5 hours away is probably the farthest I've gone, I think, or maybe even actually 3. So I've gone to the furthest end of Cape Breton. I really do like to go in person.
Yeah.
I think it also helps the homeowner for instead of just seeing me on the screen or talking to an email, that I'm an actual person and they can gauge my energy and my sincerity and how, that I'm actually invested in being there and being with them in the space and not just someone online who's trying to, just scam them or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I find that even though we're as good as we are, there's things that will be missed if it's done remotely all the time. There are things you cannot see
Yeah.
without being present in that location, because there are some things that decide to hide. And when you're looking in remotely, you're looking at it from a two-dimensional perspective, trying to actually project into a remote view into a location that has layers of different dimensional beings. It's a very difficult thing to be able to see everything. Now, you may be able to see the majority of the bigger presences that are there, or you'll be able to tell right away, okay, I'm not sensing anything projecting back to me. It doesn't have a consciousness. Most likely there's something of just residual energy there. But you can't guarantee it unless you're physically there. There's just something about being present on location that just gives more reassurance to everybody that you can go through the layers, you can change your vibrational frequency to match the energy that is there. You can scan for portals. You can scan for many different forms of entities and spiritual forms of consciousness. You can scan the people just to make sure they're not just projecting and creating the haunting within their own thought projections. Poltergeist activity can be emotional projection. So there's a lot of layers to go through that we may not be able to see just through a picture or through a name or an address. There needs to be more investigation. So I'm all for, just like you, driving hours to a location if need be, especially when someone's having a situation where they feel it's an emergency. This is just somebody's getting scratched or hurt, or an animal dies, or they're feeling really threatened. Those are the investigations. Those are the ones I love going to, because not only do you create a level of safety for people that are in a panic or crisis mode, but I get to be a little mean to some spirits and put on the law when I need to with some spirit activity. I'm sure you like doing the same. Have you had any experiences where you've had some really dark, very negative spirits that you had to put in lockdown or bring in spirit police for?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Because sometimes they're, like, oh no, I'm not going. And I'm like, well,
Oh,
here's your choices. So you are going to go, but you get to choose how you'd like to go.
yeah.
Yep.
You give
Right.
them the
So
option, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely.
And there's sometimes when like, you're walking by a location or that, yeah, I just happen like, so I'm finding I'm driving a lot lately. And when I drive by certain places, I get pinged. Like, so I get discomfort in my chest when I drive by somewheres and I know, and I'm like, oh, I know there's something going on there. And sometimes they will reach out and start trying to bug, right? And I'll be like, not now. Nope. Not now. I'm busy. So, but yeah, there's been quite a few where there's things that are more forceful or a little darker, and they're like, like, no, who do you think you are? I'm not going. And I'm like, yeah, so let's have a chat.
I kind of like that you brought up that example, Heather, about driving by and getting pinged and something wanting your attention, because sometimes people think, is my house haunted? It's like, oh, I've been living here for years. There's nothing going on. But they don't realize your house can become quote unquote haunted at any point, because if you're going out in the world, there might be things. I mean, Jordan and I went on a house clearing in Toronto, Canada, and when we were there, one of the things that kind of got attracted to the home was that the homeowner was doing these daily walks in a cemetery. And some things had kind of and the reason why they were doing it is because it was during the winter time and the walkways were always cleared in the cemetery, and just used that and for their daily walks, and ended up bringing some things home with them. And there were other things going on, but I like that you bring that up because that's true. What do you think are some of the common like signs that you see when you're getting calls, getting clients, going to homes around that indicate that there's like spiritual activity in a home?
Sometimes, well, the obvious, people hear noises, right? So they're like, oh, I keep hearing this noise. And it's like, okay, well, did you investigate it? Like, do you have, creaky pipes? Do you have, like you kind of have to go down the list of, okay, what else could it be? Right? Let's debunk this. But yeah, so noises are probably one. People see shadows, like out of the corner of their eye, they'll see like a brief little flit of a shadow go by, and they might not actually see it with their, straight on with their eyes, but it's sort of always kind of there. What else have people been reporting to me as of late? Sometimes they get poked. They feel like they're being poked, like in the arm or that kind of thing. That's a little more rare. It takes quite a bit more energy from spirit to accomplish that. I did have one where a lady, she was hearing her computer move at night. Her monitor would move, and she would hear the noise, and it's very distinctive. And she would say, I don't know if it's something or not. She said, but she goes, she had a lot of other things that were going on as well. They would hear voices. So they would hear like a woman's voice. She heard it. And then her mother also heard it on a different day, her elderly mother. What else was going on? She was having very vivid nightmares that she hadn't normally had. It kind of started up and it was becoming an issue. She wasn't sleeping well. And I had been to that location previously, and I knew that there were things going on there that had been cleared previously. But I mean, the thing is, and I tell this to people, and it's just the same as what you said, Cynthia, is that sometimes people can bring things home with them, right? Like, you go out into the world and you get what I like to call hitchhikers. So then they can just come home with you. And I explain this to people all the time, and they're like, really? Like I could bring things? And I said, yeah. I said, it's as easy as, spirit liking your energy. And then they just decide to attach to you and just kind of hitch a ride home, right? People don't, think that's real, but it does happen. And then, like there was a lot of properties around this lady's house, and a lot of like water, and it's not a cottagey area. There's a lot of homes there, but it's right on the water out near Peggy's Cove. So, I mean, you got all people coming and going and that kind of thing. And the land, there's a lot of history with the land too. So there's a lot of factors going on there with this location. And when I did go there and we went to go clear it, I did a little walk first, of course. And I did find, actually, funny enough, spirit was in her closet. And I'm like, oh, well, that explains it. Like there was a male spirit in the closet, and he was coming out of the closet at night. He would hit the computer coming out. His energy was that dense, and he was moving the computer. So I said to her, I said, you were totally right. Like you weren't going crazy, right? I said, you actually did have something that was in, because she had her desk in front of her closet, like blocking her closet, and her computer was set up there. So, and the door, I couldn't even really get the door open, like to kind of hear it. So it was a perfect place for spirit to go and hide, right? And just to kind of hang out and get away from the living, right?
They love closets. They really do. Shower stuff.
Addicts.
Have you ever seen them try to hide in the shower too? I always look in the shower.
I've been grabbed twice.
Yeah.
And I jumped. Honestly, my back was to the shower. The shower curtain was across, and I was looking out into the living room, and the homeowner was sitting in the living room. And I walked into the bathroom, and it was tiny. And I turned around to look out, and all of a sudden I felt hands come out to grab me from
Mhm.
and I jumped, like, no joke. Anyways, and I whipped around, and of course I opened the shower curtain expecting to see something. I don't know what. But I whipped the shower curtain open, and then I'm like, okay, no, I need to use my clairvoyance. And it lost my mind. And there was a teenage female there, and so yeah, we had jump scare.
Yeah.
It happens. It doesn't matter if you're medium or not. It happens.
Oh no, I've
Right.
walked around looking and looking, and then I always look in the bathroom and look and peer in and open up the shower, look they have the drape or something, look in, and the spirit's going like this. I'm not here. I'm not here. You don't see me. I'm not. I'm like, I see you just fine. You're trying to hide in the shower. They do. They think like, I'm not here. You can't see me.
I can't see you.
I'm like, really? Really? So yeah, I think that's really funny that they do that as well. Now I know that you talked about people bringing things home with them, and I don't want people kind of freaking out thinking, "Oh, I'm going to bring things home with me." The majority of people that really bring things home are pretty much undeveloped mediums that are open. We have a certain vibrational frequency that gets emitted in from our aura if we are mediums, even undeveloped mediums, which means you haven't been trained to be a medium and you're unaware that you actually are one. And your aura is actually projecting out and emitting a vibrational frequency and light that comes from your aura. And spirits can actually see that you might be the only light in the dark that they actually see. So you're going to have all these spirits kind of wandering around looking at you. And then before you know it, they're following you home. And then your home carries a vibrational match to you because you live there. You're projecting your energy in that space. So that space now feels warm and cozy and has your energy written all over it. So these spirits go into this location and they find little crevices, little closets and places to hide. And they kind of, and I don't want this to sound weird, but they kind of feed off the energy because they need it to feel better, especially if you're a medium, because mediums carry healing light within you. So they're kind of feeding off that healing light because they don't exactly know where to go. They don't feel good. So I don't want you thinking, I have a bad spirit following me home. I want you to think more of you have a spirit in need following you home because you have that inner light that they need so they can feel better. And this is where you reach out to one of us, like Heather, where you feel like, I do feel like there's someone here with me. But there's quite a few signs that you can tell there is a spirit there compared to just having the residual energy that Heather was talking about. Because as you know, most homes, and we're talking most in the world, are older homes, and older homes have a greater chance of holding that, what we call residual energy. And what that is it's energy that's been left behind after a circumstance, event, or an emotional situation that's just left its mark in that location. And sometimes these marks, or what we call imprints, can feel very much like a haunting because you'll hear sounds, you'll feel the presence of something there. You may be able to get a sense of like shadows moving around you. They can all still be imprints in a location, may not actually be spirit energy. So I was kind of hoping, ladies, if we can kind of give everyone some traditional signs that there's actually a spirit there. And I want you guys at home to pay attention to this, because if you're not picking up on any of this at home, it's a great chance you don't have a haunted location and you just have a lot of these imprints in your home, which probably still need clearing just because they don't feel very good. And most of the imprints are negative in nature because that's what usually lays their imprint heavily in a space. But if you do find that you have a lot of these signs in your home, to reach out to either a paranormal investigator, hopefully a rescue medium, or another medium that can specialize in doing house clearings. Heather, did you want to give our viewers just a few signs to look out for so they can have an idea that this is actually a haunting and not just a residual imprint?
I think probably the top one that's happened in my house was being touched. like
Uh-huh.
actually feeling like you're being poked. I literally was went to a graveyard one time with a friend of mine, and so this is a perfect example, kind of what you were talking about, Cynthia. And we came home, and I don't know if it was that night or the next night, but I literally got poked in bed in my chest hard enough that I smacked my husband, who was asleep. His back was to me, so there's no way. When I looked, there was no way he could have done it. And he woke up. And he said, "What did you do that for?" And I said, "Because you poked me." And he was like, "No." So yeah, so touching, like maybe not as aggressive as that as I experienced, but I heard whistling as well at nighttime when everybody was in bed in the hallway. A male, sound like a male's voice. So things like that, are a little more extreme.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Jordan, I know you said that you've dealt with a lot of haunted locations too. Do you have any signs that you can give our viewers so can kind of get them know if it is a haunting or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I found, so like Heather, like many of us who, again, mediums, we draw spirits. And growing up, I had so much spirit activity happening and in our home. And I noticed it wasn't always the same every time. So sometimes I would come into a space and the energy felt different. Sometimes it was very warm and inviting, and other times it was a little bit scary, where I felt like I wasn't safe and I needed to leave. But I noticed there wasn't consistency across the board. I remember one time I was a kid and I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and I was the only one home. And I could hear footsteps. That was pretty common in my house. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably the ghost, whatever. And then all of a sudden I kept hearing the silverware drawer opening and closing. And I'm like, oh, this is different. This is new. So I was like, I'm going to go up and check. So I walked up, and my friend was like, you're like, what if someone broke into your home? And then I could hear in like the cupboard smashing, and I'm like, oh, this is new. So if notice the activity would kind of change, there was no really consistency. Again, like Heather said, like the pokes, sometimes scratches, sometimes pulls. I would have like something sitting on my bed. Like I could see the imprint happening on my bed at the edge of my bed. So that was new. So yeah, I just noticed there wasn't a lot of consistency at times, because we know with the imprint, it's oftentimes it's a repeat of energy over and over and over again. So I noticed for me, that was one of my things to kind of like decipher it before I was a developed medium, and before I knew to step into the later layers and really read the energy of it. Just kind of existing in the world, that was something that I noticed. I don't know about you ladies.
Yeah. A lot of touching, a lot of movement as well. Cynthia, do you have any scenarios that happened around you that you're like, I absolutely know this was a haunted situation?
It kind of piggybacks off what Jordan was saying about consistency, but especially like if there's multiple people living in the home and everybody's having different experiences, you're not the only one. Other people are noticing things that are going on. And then the other thing is if the haunting is more like sinister, that you might notice an increase in activity if you're trying to get help. That's, you know what I mean? It's like responding, like the energy is responding to your outreaches or your change. So again, that's why I'm saying it's kind of piggybacking off of Jordan, but I think that's important. You know, you might notice that, you know, on the day the person is supposed to come clear the house, you're just not feeling well enough to have them there. All of a sudden, you're just feeling under the weather, or something, the person's on their way and then they have car trouble and they can't get there. So these are all things not to freak out about, but just to think, have it in your awareness so that you can think critically about it. And like Heather said over and over again, like feel validated that you're not crazy, that there's something there that needs to be looked into further, and not to let that deter you, and not to give your power away, especially if interference is happening with you trying to get someone to help you.
Right. Exactly.
That
Well,
definitely happened. One of the last houses that I did, one of the first things they said when I walked in the door, oh, it got really active yesterday and last night. And I'm like, yeah, I knew I was coming. It's okay.
That's what they do. They're like, oh, someone's coming. Either we're gonna have a party or I'm gonna get really aggressive.
Evicted.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Spirits can sense what's about to happen because spirits don't live in our linear timeline. So they can actually expand their consciousness to be able to see what's about to happen, and they'll try to stop it from actually happening. But some signs that I could tell that a place is haunted, because I've dealt with a lot of them ever since I was a teenager, or even younger, because I grew up in a haunted house. One is, have you seen something like an apparition?
Mhm.
That's a pretty big thing. I remember my brother telling us one morning that he got up in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 in the morning, went for a drink of water, and next thing he knows, he looks, because we have an open concept California ranch, and because I lived in California, so you can kind of like see an open space in all the rooms. He's walking across the hallway to the kitchen, and he sees something moving out of the corner of his eye. He looks over to take a look at it, and it's an old man sitting in our rocking chair, rocking, an apparition, rocking. And he just looks over at my brother Abram. And of course he freaks out and he goes and he runs and he puts the covers over his head. He's like, I don't need that drink of water. So seeing the rocking chair moving, seeing an apparition is pretty much a classic haunting. You're actually seeing something. But seeing something is one thing, but when it actually looks at you or interacts with you or knows that you're there, that's more of a classic haunting and ghost that's there. You're also going to see things move, as Jordan and Heather and Cynthia all talked about. If there's movement, are they opening up counters and drawers? Are they flashing the lights? Are they moving or disturbing electrical outlets or electrical things like your computer or your cell phone? Are things just not working? Because what they're doing is they're actually draining the energy in your battery from these electrical devices, because they have electromagnetic energy. They're going to pull this electric energy from these devices to feed their energy so they can manifest. So you're going to have, like, my cell phone's not working, the lights are flashing, and the lights just aren't working, or the radio is not working for those supposed to have radios in their house. So you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to feel things walking around you. You may not be able to see it, but you know what it's like when someone walks up and stands behind you and you just know someone's there, but you're like, okay, I'm too afraid to look because I know I'm home alone, but there's something right there. It's like, that happened to me, 15 years old, home alone in the shower, and that happened to me. So it's like you can feel something walking up and like standing right next to you, almost like they're breathing on you. And it's that eerie feeling of, I can feel it, I can sense it, I just can't see it. What does that mean? You know, you're also going to get a lot of movement, doors opening and closing. But the things that you want to kind of watch out for that aren't hauntings are sounds. Sounds can be manipulated very easily just by residual energy. It doesn't have to be a haunting. So actually hearing things is kind of that gray zone of the unknown of, is this a haunting? Is this not a haunting? Things that you want to look for instead, movement. Is it moving? Is it moving things in your home? Is it moving the lights? Is it flickering? Is it actually moving your stuff and hiding it from you, such as your wallet or your car keys or anything like that too? Is it interacting with you, such as it scaring your cat or your dog? Is it walking around you? Is it pushing you? Is it sitting at the edge of your bed at night when you're trying to go to sleep at night and you feel that imprint or someone like is sitting there with you? One of the creepy crawly things is when they're crawling up your bed and you can feel the impressions of them. Happened a lot to me when I was a teenager, and of course would freak me out whenever it would happen. Flip on the leg, go, like, go away. I don't want anything to do with you. But you can feel that energy there. And lastly, are you getting some type of response when you're trying to engage and talk to them? Such as you're hearing rappings on the wall. They're doing flashing of the lights. You're communicating with them and they're communicating back to you as some form of communication response. these are the three biggest ways to tell that you actually have a haunting, and it's just not a residual energy. But Heather, again, we know not everything is a ghost when we talk about hauntings and locations. And not to scare everyone out there, even though I'm pretty sure you want to be scared because it's spooky season. Do we want to talk a little bit about what else might be going on in the home? Not to scare you guys. Again, this is just for educational purposes. We're going to scare you. But Heather, do you want to talk a little bit about what else it could be other than a ghost, so people can have an idea of what can scare them before they go to bed tonight?
Well, I mean, you did talk about residual stuff. I want to mention one other thing, though, that has happened to me twice in this house. Smells, like odors, like a wafting of perfume that would go by me and then a minute later be gone. And also the other one I had was, I think, cigarette smoke or cigar smoke. It would be there 1 minute and gone the next. None of us smoke. This is a non-smoking house, so
classic sign of spiritual activity. But a lot of that actually happens with spirits that are in the light. That's just their way of coming through. So we can't tell if it's a ghost or just an answer to the light with that one. Yeah, smells big. But what about like ETs or interdimensionals or?
Oh, that's where you want to go.
We're getting weird. It's dark. It's after dark.
We need to get a bit darker.
Okay, so I mean, besides just regular what we call earthbound spirits haunting houses, we can also have other things. Entities such as ETs, that kind of thing. I worked on a house in Spring Hill that as soon as I arrived there, I don't know why, but because usually I go right into the house, but when I got out of the car, I was very much drawn to the backyard immediately. So I went back there and I found, so there are portals, for anyone who doesn't know, portals that allow entities, spirits, that kind of thing, to travel between dimensions, like to come into our world and that kind of thing. So when I went into the backyard and the back corner, I sensed that there was an extraterrestrial portal back there. And so I pulled some information about it. And then when I had a chance, I asked the homeowners about it. I asked her stepson as well, because he lived in the house the longest. And I said, has this ever happened to you? Or, have you ever had these vivid dreams of being chased? And he said, oh yeah, my whole time growing up, every night I would go to sleep and I'd have dreams I was being chased by this scary thing. And so that is something to, things that go bump in the night for you to be afraid of, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Jordan, what do you got that you want to share with the viewers that could be a little bit more spooky than a ghost?
Oh gosh. I would say entities that are from the lower world or from a lower frequency, some who have a lot of form of consciousness. So there's an understanding of what they're trying to do and how they're trying to manipulate an individual, really to take them out of their power. So whether that be through fear tactics, poking at their wounding, the insecurities that we carry. But also I've had beings of lower consciousness that really didn't have, honestly, much consciousness to themselves. They were just kind of energy that was kind of going around and were quite vicious. And when I would step in to try to manage, normally I can have like a conversation. You can kind of go back and forth. Where these ones felt just like pockets of dense negative energy that was just going out and just causing havoc. And so the tool set that I had to use was very different because it didn't have I couldn't really have a conversation with it. And then what my team explained to me is they said, sometimes, again, like energy attracts like energy. And sometimes you have all these clusters of energy that are really dense and dark. And it can be very vicious sometimes when you come across some of these things. And no matter what I did, again, trying to have a conversation, nothing was working. And so then I actually had to clear it away instead of, transporting it wherever it needed to go. But it almost reminded me of like the Tasmanian devil a little bit. And it's are like vicious.
Yes, they are.
again, didn't go after it the same way, but didn't go do that manipulation of that mental and that emotional aspect of the self. It really didn't do the fear tactics. It was just pure, I'm just going to attack you and attack until it stops.
Can you describe what an attack feels like so people can have an idea of like, has this happened to me before? How do I know I'm being attacked?
So for me, at least I always categorize them by mentally. So am I having really negative thought patterns come in? I know Cynthia shared at one episode on the show how a spirit kind of came in and gave her a narrative, and she was like, that's not how I talk about myself. So Katya, like, that's not the narrative that I ever describe about myself. So sometimes they might implant different thoughts to again, take you out of your power, or threaten you as well, not for nothing. Other times manipulating your wounding and really, again, thoughts, emotions, experiences, they're energetic. If you're to autopsy me them, you're not going to see them in there. And so therefore energy beings can read that. And so they might target some of those things, some things that you've never thought that, you know, you've already dealt with it. You never thought it would come up again. And now suddenly you're having dreams about them. You're having a lot of memories come up, and there's a lot of emotion kind of being with that. And we've talked about this before on the show, if it gets dialed up. You know, on a regular day, if you were to scale it out of 1 out of 10, it might be out of 4. And now you're sitting at a solid 8, 9. And it's really hard to push it away. No matter what you do, you can't distract yourself. It won't go away. I just mentioned dreams, right? And Heather mentioned that as well. Like having spirits pop into your dreams and threaten you or try to, again, bring you out of your power, make you feel scared, make you feel like you don't have control. Fear tactics, right? So yes, we can do, you know, chopping off the lights. You can. I had a water bottle thrown at me once from my room when I had a being come in and try to threaten me, and I'm like, no, you need to go. And as I was telling it needed to go, and it was being escorted out, it knocked off all the stuff off my wall, almost to pretty much tell me where to go as it was being escorted out.
You tried to pick it up on its way out.
Oh, I was like, great. This now I got to clean up your mess because you don't like that I told you to leave because I don't want you in my space. Again, anything that really takes you out of your power of feeling that you have control over your own life, that you're safe, that you're protected, that like you've got it. And that's what I was thinking about earlier, Heather, about how relieving it can be for someone. You mentioned earlier saying, you know, we can do this, like we've got this, we can figure this out, and just how much safety and security that could bring someone again. And even just the education that you give people and telling people, hey, you know, you're not crazy, lay it on me, I can handle it. But also really validating people in the experience, because can be very terrifying to be, not for nothing, again, being with your family, being with your animals, being with your loved ones, or even just being by yourself and things are going bump in the night and you don't know what to do. And I'm curious for like all of you as well, especially like for those viewers who might be going through something, how would you empower someone to have that sense of, you know, I'm going to be okay. I'm not alone in this.
I think the big thing that people need to understand is that, and you talked about it, is that they do have power. And a lot of times they're handing over their power to whatever they perceive is going on, right? And they think they're powerless. And so that's one of the big things that I say to them is that you need to take your power back, right? You need to say, like, this is my house. You know, you don't belong here. You don't have human form. Like, this is my house. I live here physically, and you need to get out. And they need to really project that energy out. And I mean, it's sometimes people aren't comfortable and they feel like they're out of their element, and I get that. But yeah, that's the number one thing you can do. I mean, that's one of the big things I did here in this house, was to take my power back and not be afraid anymore and be like, no, you can't be here. Like, this is mine. You need to get out. If you have to get out. So I think that's probably the best advice I can give someone. Secondly, I mean, yeah, I can come in and do everything, do all of, like, you know, clear it all, close portals, increase the vibration, all that stuff. But if someone is still, you know, going out and doing walks in cemeteries, or like you talked about, Cynthia, or if they're doing, Ouija board, or if they're doing all these things and they're going to keep reopening stuff, then that's, they're going to keep having things happen, right? So one of the other things I had to bring up at one of the houses I did a few months back is that, I know that you have a boarder here, they have a Ouija board, and you need to explain to her that there's no using the Ouija board. Like, I'm going to go in and clear everything. But once I do that, I mean, you really need to lay down the law here, and that kind of stops, right? And then also, she was very anxious she had an anxious personality. And I don't think she felt a lot of power within herself. So I gave her some things to do, right? I gave her some homework and kind of said, well, here's what you need to take your space back. So I want you to, you're going to burn these candles, and you're going to light some sage, and you're going to keep the place light. I want you to play solfeggios, certain frequencies, whatever you like, whatever feels pleasing to you, and keep the space, light and airy and positive. So, I mean, those things together, I think that gives people their power back, that they actually do have control over this, and that they don't, have to contact me every few weeks because they need help again, right? That's very important for everyone to realize that you do have power in this.
Yeah.
I'd like people to take from that. Ouija boards are just any other tool. Just like people use tarot cards or dowsing rods or pendulums or any other type of device that opens a communication between you and spirit. Now, there are many trained mediums out there that use these tools very efficiently and very safely. I don't want people thinking that they're bad, because they're not. The problem that we have is many people are using them without being trained efficiently on boundaries, self-protection, setting intention, and controlling your space well enough to be able to control the type of spirits that come through. If you haven't been trained in any of that, you have no reason to use these tools, because if you haven't been trained to communicate, if you haven't been trained to protect, if you haven't been trained to hold space for the other people that are around you, you shouldn't be using these tools to open up doors to the other side. It's kind of like, you're going in and you're walking in to do a science experiment. If you don't know how to actually use the chemicals, you shouldn't be using them. You don't know what might blow up in your face. You have to be given the necessary tools to be able to use it efficiently. These tools were used and developed for mediums to use as a supplemental way of being able to receive information when they can't always connect the way they need to, but they have the necessary skills and information to protect themselves. Instead, people are just gathering these tools as toys and hoping to open up connections to the other side. So I don't want people thinking the tools are bad. It's the application of the tools and the misinformation that's bad when using these tools. So just want people to be aware that if you do train and you do take classes and you learn how to protect, there's no reason why you can't use a tool. But at the same time, after you've been training and developing long enough, you'll recognize you don't need the tools, because you can be able to connect just fine on your own. I think we had a really amazing discussion today. And again, Heather had a lot of great information. But Heather, how can people actually reach out if they do want to, hey, I need you to come to my home. I need you to drive 3 hours to come see me and clear my property, or just let them know that, there's nothing to be, afraid of at their location, or maybe there is and they really need to call you. How can people reach out?
Well, I have a couple sites on Facebook, Lost Soul Spiritual Services and Heather Rann Rescue Medium. As I shifted, I created a secondary site. I also have heatherrandmedium.services as a website if they prefer, if they're not on Facebook. And then also they could reach out through email, heather.d.rann@gmail.com. So a number of different ways.
Wow. we are again very grateful to have you on the show with us today. It was
Thanks so
good
much
just
for
to
having
see-
me.
Yeah, we look forward to working with you again in the future. We
I know.
actually didn't get to discuss, but I'm a certain place that we actually went to all together. I'm kind of thinking we're going to have you back on the show now that people have an idea of your skill set, who you are, and what you do. I think we should have you back on so we can actually have a special episode to talk about a location we all went to called the Hinsdale House. Because we were all there together and we all did an investigation together. And we might actually show you clips of that actual investigation and talk about it right here on the show. And I think that would be a lot of fun if you're interested in coming back on to discuss that.
That sounds great.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking forward to it. Might do it a little closer to Halloween, and that way you guys can all have a little bit more spooky time with us. I'm looking forward to it. And again, if you do need to reach out to us, there is our email address. And can you give that to them, Cynthia?
Absolutely. It's spiritrescuetalk@gmail.com. But I also wanted to say, Heather, that, one thing about Heather and being able to get to know her, we did some training together, is she's kind of like the best of both worlds, because you get somebody who's tough, unafraid, gifted, and knows what they're doing, but is all heart. And,
Yep.
until you really get to know you are very compassionate, you are very sincere. And when you take on a job, you do it with everything that you have, and you come from a very, very pure place. And it's a wonderful attribute that you have.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Oh,
We can't say enough good things about you, Heather. You are very talented, and I'm so grateful to know you and to have you especially part of our team. So yeah, she's the real deal. The connector if you need the services.
Yeah.
And we want to thank all of you for joining us again. If you have any questions, email us. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, email us. Reach out and say hello. We'll see you next time.